it doesn't need to be the same way. I can adapt my self-image, be conscious, be aware, what am I doing? Am I going in with the sense that, oh, what a loser am I? Then I'm just going to replicate all the behaviors that goes with the loser self-image, right? And then because we start throwing off that vibrations from our body, the other person also senses you as, and then talks down or talks in a way that you get further feedback to say you are a loser, right? So then we are caught in a trap. And then it's just so difficult to get out of it. So one of the mental spatial tool is to change your self-image to adapt to your particular environment. Hey, Sana.
Hi, Bhavna. How are you? Hello, Mr. Octopus.
He is going well. I am fine. And hello to our viewers.
Hello,
Hello to
viewers.
all of you.
Today I'm from my new place. It's a new desk I have.
I really liking it. I really, really, really liking it.
Thank you. So, Bhavna, what is the topic for today?
What's been on my mind, because a number of people have been talking about it, is workplace issues. And what do you think about it? Can we talk about workplace this
Yeah,
session?
I think we spent 8 hours with our 8 to 9 hours, sometimes 10, with colleagues, with people we don't know really much about, but we still spend a lot of time together.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there are certain pleasant, sometimes unpleasant situations or people that can really take our energies away or stress us out. So maybe we can talk about that.
I agree. And there are so many complex issues, right? I mean, this 8, 9 hours of what is called workplace is not exactly just a workplace, right? There's just all kinds of pieces that is superimposed into the workplace, your own personal life journey, your family and your family dynamics, and also the emerging issues in the workplace. So it's such a complex area of being that sometimes doesn't get recognized.
Yeah. And also, like, you can choose your work, but you can't choose your colleagues or bosses. And this is a situation where, you have to, yeah, contain yourself in a box, I would say, watch being, yeah, to be in a certain shape and size and to agree to the norms of things. I don't know.
Exactly.
Like, I don't know how to say it in words. Like, if I am at my home, I'm much more comfortable
Mhm.
around, even though they're not people. But then when I'm in office, there is this persona, which is, or personality or way of being, which is expected out of you at a workplace.
You're right. And in fact, that is what mental space psychology, there is a particular way in which it works on this. Now, the notion of self in mental space psychology is derived from Gregory Bateson's work on that the self, and in fact, Gregory Bateson's work is also connected with Carl Jung's work and others' work, um, that the self is not individual, it's not like separated, it's not an essential self, but rather the self is a social dynamics. The self is social in the sense that I know who I am based on my social circumstances and the feedback that I'm getting in the social circumstance. So within the family, supposing my relationship with my brother is of a particular kind and he's giving me a certain feedback, then my self-image kind of adapts to be that in that particular situation of how I'm communicating. So there is feedback from others and also feedback from our own self. We are also assessing ourselves based on how we think one ought to be in a particular social circumstance. So there is self-assessment plus others' feedback, all coming together to what is called a self-image within mental space psychology. So one has to continuously adapt self to
Mm.
manage social environment. So if you're feeling very comfortable, or if any of our viewers is feeling very comfortable, maybe with certain set of friends, or in the home, in a particular room in the home, well, just notice, that your self-image is perhaps positive. It is perhaps, it is in a state that infuses you with, positive feedback. It's saying,
I think for
yay,
the
you can.
audience, I'm a mental space psychologist. I've studied under you and trained under you, so I know what is a self-image.
Yeah.
But maybe there might be certain audience which they don't know the perception of self-image in
You're
mental
so
space.
right. Yes, yes. Thank you for that. Sometimes, I just, because
Yeah,
I'm
we have
talking and
terms.
then
Yeah,
we have come to understand that. So, self-image is kind of an anthropocentric metaphor, spatial metaphor that is is a representation of ourselves. Um, so if you are thinking of yourself that you're doing really well, it's possible that your self image, which there is a spatial tool in how you can discover your self image, can be, somebody who's just standing with looking vibrant and slightly taller than you and has this lovely light and facial expression. You just look at it and yeah, man, I just feel so good about myself. And have you experienced that, Sana, in certain circumstances?
yeah, I have experienced it. Yeah,
Yes. And then there are situations, and all of us have these situations where we feel poorly of ourselves. We go there and we are unsure, we feel awkward maybe, or maybe some memory, some memory of somebody saying, or you feeling very poorly of yourself because you couldn't say the smartest thing and couldn't do the most shiny perfect thing that is required, and you tell yourself, God, I suck. Yeah. And then that sense of,
self.
you know that
Yeah,
that then stucks. And sometimes I've seen that self-image maybe like with a drooping shoulder and the face is downcast. Sometimes it's like this, the face is all wrinkled and looking straight, like sad eyes, giving no energy back. I've also seen self-images which are not close, which are far away, and they're like shrunk, they're small self-image, and so you're not getting that sense of who I am in a space. And so you're like, I'm nobody, I'm just nobody. So that is what we mean by a self image. And it's an actual spatial representation.
yeah.
And there's a mental spatial process for that. Was
Thank
that
you.
making sense, Sana?
No, it
Or,
really made sense that how do we perceive ourselves, in our space if we close our eyes and we assume who we are and we see how we see ourselves. So
right.
what is that image? Is it the same age or is it younger than you? It's taller than you. There is so much brightness. If it's smiling, not smiling, because everything has a meaning to your self-image, somewhere how you think or perceive yourself. So thank you, Bhavna. It was a very,
Yeah,
important piece. Yeah.
you're welcome. So then the self image has to be adapted. Because if it is a social kind of a socially, it's a result of a social feedback, then it also means it doesn't need to be the same way. If I feel lousy in a workplace setting, it doesn't need to be the same way. I can adapt my self image, be conscious, be aware, what am I doing? Am I going in with the sense that, oh, what a loser am I? Then I'm just going to replicate all the behaviors that goes with the loser self image, right? And then because we start throwing off that vibrations from our body, the other person also senses you as, and then talks down or talks in a way that you get further feedback to say you are a loser, right? So then we're caught in a trap. And then it's just so difficult to get out of it. So one of the mental spatial tool is to change your self-image to adapt to your particular environment.
Yeah. And then how do we think we can do it in terms of our office spaces, the workspaces. I actually was thinking when you were telling it about that, what's happening with me? Why do sometimes I feel uncomfortable? I feel my self-image is very big and I have to shrink myself, when I am in those places that, okay, now it's a box and I need to be small to be in that box to know. And then how long can I be like this? And then after 8 hours, like freedom, I'm outside the building, I'm same size again.
Isn't that an interesting thing, right? And so
Yeah,
that must be, that affects our work, right? If our self-image is not is not healthy as we need it, it's not the same for each person. Each person needs their self-image in a particular way, and their environment also needs their self-image. You can't have a super confident self-image in a workplace where there are multiple bosses who are also struggling to have great self-images. You perhaps don't want to do that. So based on the dynamic of the environment and your own sense of what is health for you, you have to figure out a way to adapt the self-image so that
yeah.
something your work can be a little more smoother and a little more joyous. um but
And
it's
how do you
fun.
suggest that, like for some people around our workspaces, we can be uncomfortable and okay, we still have to keep the interactions to professional level, but we still don't want to be affected personally, in those 8 hours. Okay, we don't think about them after work, of course. Maybe some people they still carry it, but in those 8 hours where we should be at our best and being more productive, but still not getting stressed out by certain, yeah, behaviors or situations that are directly or not directly impacting us
Yeah,
in
you
terms
know,
of self-image.
yeah. Sana, this is a very deep question, right? It's
Yeah.
not just a single pronged
No,
answer,
it's not a single
right?
cause and effect. No.
Yeah, I mean, for example, yes, as you pointed out, the self-image may be of issue, so maybe you need to look at the spatial representation of your self-image and just notice where is it placed and how big or small it is, and what is how are you responding to that image? Is this like a positive image? Is a negative image? um, and what is your environment, and based on that environment, what is an appropriate one? So that is definitely one of the ways. But then sometimes it's not just that. It is possible that, for example, one of your colleagues or your bosses can occupy an authority position. If that person is occupying an authority position, which means you have had authority figures in your life at some point who have made an interesting enough impact that their spatial location is potent for
Mm.
someone else to occupy. So, supposing you had a teacher or somebody who used to grade you, and that person, woman or man, tended to do certain things, behaviors, maybe tonality, maybe certain gestures, which you remember, and it's very much in your body. Now the teacher is no longer there, and you've also grown up into a beautiful adult. But then there is this boss who comes, and he or she may do certain gestures or certain things which is, oh God. And before
Yeah.
you know, that person has occupied the same location or thereabouts the same location as your teacher. And you're
Mm.
enacting all the feelings that your body knew as a child with your authority figure. So
Yes.
sometimes we are superimposing, That's why this workplace is such a complex piece, right, Sana?
Yes. Yes. It's very complex and it's very deep and it's yeah. And you think it's a non-personal space and you are expected in a certain way, but you are the same person. You are working on the same, programs in your mind. And how can you produce different results with the same inputs?
Exactly. So well
Mm.
said. Yeah. If we do what we have always done, we will get what we always got. Yes.
Yeah. It's just that I think yeah, we fine tune the results a bit. We put filters on our faces, on our behaviors,
Yeah.
which are different.
Yes.
That's how I think we are managing the output. Like, okay, and but you said it right. Like I was thinking, okay, what bothers me, when okay, I've been very lucky so far, working in different companies, yeah, in different countries, different kinds of bosses, but really lucky with the bosses in general. They were a lot humble and, very kind people who were, yeah, very sure of themselves, and they gave enough spaces for me to grow. And, but then there have been certain people, yeah, who have been in those, yeah, they were managers and in the positions of lead, and then they have this authority figure. And then I may be a very good team player in their team, which they would like to keep, but I wouldn't like to stay in the team.
Yes. So then we have all these other memories that is superimposing. And then the issue of our self-image. What is the condition of our
Yes,
self-image in that
yes. It's
environment?
coming so deeply from the past that we don't consciously remember, but my unconscious remembers, and it behaves in exactly the way it thinks it should behave.
Yes. And there are
You don't know
more
why you're
issues.
uncomfortable.
And there are more issues in the sense you may have had no memory. You may have had all positive memories growing up. It's possible, right?
Yeah,
But there may be current family stressors, multiple family stressors, or cultural stressors, right? And so the sometimes the tearing apart about how women are showing up in workplace versus how they have to show up in a cultural space or in a family space can be sometimes diametrically different. And what happens in the family also affects what happens in the workplace because, after all, it's the same person who is going into the workplace, right? So, if in the family there is, for example, you really feel very poorly about yourself, or you get very lot of negative feedback, then there is a crushing state of your sympathetic parasympathetic balance that you take to the workplace that then affects in multiple ways. One, that crushing self image may continue into the workplace, or you try to compensate by trying to have a better self image and putting more ideal standards in the workplace to compensate what is happening in some other
yeah.
area, right? And
I
all
have
of
seen
this
both
simply
of
is.
these examples in my life, in other people, that
Mhm,
something was very much going on at home, a
mm.
lot of stress, and then there is very lack of self-expression at home. The image is very poor, but then there was this compensatory, large, big self-image at work, and yeah, there it's importance and people are recognizing you and you have everything. I've seen this example. I've seen the other poorly example where you carry that poor drooped and I'm not important or my destiny is like this. I always get, treated in the same way and people just treat me like that. But I've seen both examples that you have just mentioned, yeah. And it is very much possible that, yeah, you could be in one of the many situations.
Yes. And also, we should not be forgetting the cultural representation because
So
even
important.
if you're really working on yourself and building your strong self image, there is also a cultural feedback on what you can be and how much you can be, because there is also these feedback processes, right? I have known of women in workplace, especially in our South Asian context, who will struggle of not being a good mother, right? So
Mhm.
then they are in the workplace, but they're carrying the shame or guilt of not being a good mother because certain amount of time and certain kind of attention is to be given to the children, and they're not able to splice themselves so much. So these women carry into the workplace a certain guilt that is embedded in the way they are representing themselves in the workplace. And similarly, when they come back into the family again, not knowing, am I to be
Mm,
just a mother? But if I'm just a mother, then some of my identity is lost at the workplace. It's struggle.
it's a struggle.
It's a struggle.
Yeah, I think it's another topic of conversation. We can definitely expand in one of the conversations that so much stress also that we carry, like the responsibility. You are marked as a homemaker, so everything stands on your shoulder, and there's a process running that everything is in place. And then there's so much stress that people cannot really understand that what's why we are so much stressed out, what is the stress, and why is this huge responsibility that we are feeling around if we are working mothers.
Exactly. And so these pieces, some of which can be managed, but then other pieces cannot be just adapted. You just have to sit with and become aware of these patterns and ask yourself, ask the client, help your client to figure out for themselves what is an appropriate way in their particular culture, in their particular environment, in their particular set of relationships, and their dynamics that exist, whether in the workplace or outside. What would be an appropriate way to be? And there isn't a very easy answer, right? I really wish that was so, but it's not easy. But then there can be some relief from some of the suffering.
Indeed.
The other piece that I thought we should also talk about is sometimes we have colleagues who are, lack of better word, irritating, right? It's our experience that they are
Yeah, it's
irritating.
also our perception of them. We are not calling them irritating people, but they're irritating for us.
Yes, exactly. It is our experience that they
It's
are
our
irritating.
experience of them, yeah, in
Yes.
our world.
And when they are irritating, or when we experience them as irritating,
As
we tend to
irritating.
be also a little obsessed with them, right? So we remember them, we notice them, we are ready to react to them even before they have said anything. It's just as if they've come into the field of vision or field of
Yeah.
perception,
No,
and
because
that
we have a checklist, right? First
exactly.
time, second time, third time.
Exactly. Yes, yes, exactly. And so there is a way by which our entire system is going into alert and then reacting to it. Again, mental spatial tools, there are
Cool.
beautiful tools. One of it is changing the location of a problem personification. So you locate in your mental space where you are personifying this person who you are experiencing as irritating. And then where do you locate a person who you consider as neutral? If they come or go, you're not bothered. And this, from there, a lot of learning can happen just from noticing. And in some cases, that we can also do a changing of locations. Dr. Lucas Dirks has an entire process of how to change locations. I prefer to have more learning. If we learn why we are experiencing and what is happening between a neutral person and an irritating person in our mental map, it can actually reveal our filters and it can reveal our values and our beliefs. And that holding that loose is actually very generative because then it becomes not just about that irritating person, it becomes about irritating people in general,
Yeah.
So we're not trying to just fix a problem. We're trying to learn, okay, what's making me so irritated about so many
Yeah,
things in
yeah.
the world?
What is it? Yeah, it's not about the person, but what is it in specifically, what they're doing, what we are not liking, where it is affecting, what we have taken so much in our life that we don't have any more bandwidth, to to allow it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. It was great chatting with you, Sana, and I have a feeling we need to do a part 2 of this. Just
I think we definitely need a part 2 in terms of South Asian working women,
yes,
juggling so many balls in their hands.
and let's do that. So let's do a part 2 on the South Asian working women's lives and how can mental space psychology help them.
Yeah.
And to our viewers, please share with us if there is any particular concerns you notice in your workplace
Yeah.
where you would like us to reflect further from a spatial standpoint. And it's not that we know all the answers, but we are happy to reflect on it together.
Yeah, and I would definitely recommend exploring your own mental space, Just close your eyes and see, where do you see yourself? How is your self image? Where there are different things and people located in your self image. And if you have questions, to, respond on that on our video. And then, what does representation means? And yeah, we can definitely, if we have time, look into the, yeah, certain representations. But it's also about raising awareness of mental space and how it can help people in general.
Yes. Thank you, Sana. And for our viewers also, if I am offering a program, a mental space psychology diploma program, which is online, it's starting on November 9th. You'll find the link in the text below, the caption below the video. So look through it. We also have a practitioner program, which will be a combination of online and offline. So there'll be an in-person hybrid program. So if you're interested in that, also please look into the link and you'll have all the details. In the meantime, we will be, of course, continuing with all these conversations and keep reflecting because our lives are very interesting, aren't they, Sana?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much more that I learn in every conversation where we sit back and say, okay, yeah, this was happening, and that is because of this. And that's how, I learn more about myself.
Yeah, me too. I also learn through these conversations a lot, and it's just wonderful talking with you, Sana. And thank you to all our viewers who take the time
Thank
to
you,
watch
Will.
us.
Yes, and
See
please
you soon
continue doing
again.
so. Yeah,
Yes,
and
see you
we'll make.
soon. Until then, please keep enjoying your mental spatial experience.
Thank you, Bhavna. See you.
See you.